This video is going to follow up on our supply and demand topics, and we're going to talk about elasticity. Now, the way you relate the concept of elasticity to supply and demand is by focusing on the law of supply and the law of demand. The law of supply and the law of demand, it's simply the relationship between price and quantity supplied and quantity demanded. For example, the law of demand states that when price goes up, quantity demanded goes down. And when price goes down, quantity demanded goes up. That's a simple correlation between price and quantity demanded, a negative correlation. This is why the demand curve is downward sloping. It has a negative slope. Supply, positive relationship. When price goes up, quantity supplied goes up. When price goes down, quantity supplied goes down. Now what we're going to do with elasticity is we're going to go beyond simple correlation, and we're going to be looking at sensitivity. So when you think about elasticity, the word elasticity is really sensitivity. So an elasticity analysis is a sensitivity analysis. And there are many different demand elasticities, and there are many supply elasticities. For every determinant of demand, there is an elasticity analysis associated with it. And the same thing goes with determinants of supply. In this class, we're going to be focusing on price elasticity. So in other words, the determinant of demand is price, and we're going to be asking how sensitive is price to a change in demand. Excuse me, how sensitive is demand to a change in price? But there are many other demand elasticities: income elasticity, cross-price elasticity, advertising elasticity. Again, for every determinant of demand, there is an elasticity. So let's again focus on price elasticity. And what we're seeing here is the book, the Bay text, talks about price elasticity as own price elasticity. Sometimes I refer to it just as price elasticity. It means the same thing. But like I said previously, there are other elasticities. For example, income elasticity. Income is a determinant of demand, and we know that when we talk about a normal good, the correlation between income and demand is positive. In other words, when you increase people's income, they tend to demand more of normal goods. When you decrease income, they demand less. That's a simple correlation. Income elasticity says, well, how much did demand increase when you increased income? How much did demand decrease when you decreased income? That's a sensitivity analysis. That's income elasticity. Now, another very important demand elasticity is cross-price elasticity. This talks about how when the price of good X goes up or down, what impact does it have on the demand for good Y? Now, if it is a substitute good, they have a positive correlation. In other words, when the price of Coke goes up, the demand for Pepsi tends to go up because people switch. When the price of Coke goes down, the demand for Pepsi goes down because, again, people are switching from Pepsi to Coke in that case. But that doesn't say anything about how sensitive they are to a change in price. That's what cross-price elasticity talks about. And then, of course, there's a whole host of supply elasticities. How sensitive is supply when you change factor costs? We know that there's a simple correlation. We know that if you raise factor costs, supply tends to go down, but by how much? That's, again, a sensitivity analysis. So when we talk about price elasticity or own price elasticity, goods are going to be categorized in one of three categories: either elastic, inelastic, or unelastic. Now, elastic, sensitive. That means customers or demanders are sensitive to a change in price. When you change price a little bit, demand tends to change a lot. Inelastic means when you change price, demand changes very little. It still changes, but just not very much. Then unelastic simply means price and demand changes are proportional. When you increase price, let's say by 1%, demand decreases by 1%. So it's in between sensitive and insensitive. And so what you're seeing here is you've got a way, when you if you look at the equation right here, let me just bring up my pointer here. When you look at this equation right here, the value of E, how do you interpret that? Well, this is going to be a percentage. And when the value of E is greater than 1%, we say that the good is price elastic, or in other words, it is sensitive to a change of price. When the value of E is less than 1%, it is inelastic. In other words, when price changes, demand does not change all that much. And then again, like I said before, when the value of E is 1, that simply means when the price increases by 1%, demand changes by 1%. So the change in price and change in demand are proportional. That is what we call unit elastic. Sometimes it's called unitary elastic. Now, this is one equation for price elasticity. This is called arc price elasticity. Sometimes it's also called midpoint, but they're basically the same thing. And what you're doing is if you go back to this equation right here, remember the equation is percentage change of price over the percentage change in P, percentage change in quantity over the percentage change in price. You can see over here, it does not look like simple percent changes. Well, more or less it is. What we're trying to do is we're trying to make this calculation consistent when you go from P1 to P2 and from P2 to P1. And what I'm trying to say by that is when you increase price from $10 to $11, that's a 10% increase. But when you go from $11 to $10, that is not a 10% decrease. In other words, the change in P, percentage-wise, differs depending upon which direction you're going, from P1 to P2 or from P2 to P1. This equation cancels that out. In other words, when you use this equation, it doesn't matter if you start from $10 and go to 11 or from 11 to 10, you're going to get the same number. But the point is, how do you interpret E? And the way you interpret E is through this right here, right? When the value of E is greater than 1%, the good is elastic. When the value of E is less than 1, but greater than 0, it is inelastic. And when it is equal to 1, it's unit elastic. Now keep in mind, we're talking about the absolute value because price and coin demanded have a negative relationship, this value will always be negative. But what economists do is they simply drop the negative sign and they look at the absolute value. Now here we could do a simple example here. If you go from 35 cents, let's say this is your P1, 35 cents. This is your demand, Q1. What if you lower price from 35 cents to 30 cents? Well, you go from 6 units to 8 units. We could plug these values in this equation right here. See your P1, that's going to be 35 cents. Your P2 is going to be 30 cents. Your Q1 is going to be 6. Your Q2 is going to be 8. You simply plug in these values and you're going to get a value of roughly 1.85. 1.85%. Now, since 1.85% is greater than 1, this good is considered to be price elastic, at least when it comes to this price change. What we're going to be discussing later on in this video is price sensitivities do change for several different reasons. And one of the reasons is if you keep increasing price, people will gradually become more and more sensitive to it. And that's what we're going to cover in the next video.